I don't necessarily think that it has. I think the idea of being able to, going back to, I don't want to keep harping the same notes here, right? But I think the idea of being able to make an impact into a tool that everybody can potentially use one day. And in fact, a project and a product that I myself am using is one of the most exhilarating things, right? That's what I think is like the best incentive of all of this for the common good, right? But yeah.
Wow.
So would you say that Stella has seen a lot of benefit from all of this open source incentivizing? Do they get a lot of like benefits from all these different perspectives coming in and adding to
Yeah,
their code?
absolutely, right? Going back to the Stellar, we are building for the unbanked population, right? And that unbanked population, a lot of them is not in America. In fact, we have builders in Africa, we have builders in India, in Latin America that feel the real difficulty of being able to bring money onto their continent. In Africa, specifically, we see many creators who are like, I have all these ideas, but I can't even move money to my continent. Well, you know what? Screw all these ideas. Let me build an idea utilizing Stellar that's an open source tool. I could go take this and make it my own. I can build with this project right now, right? That is what really that perspective is what is incentivized to help make the network better, right? So yeah, to your
Yeah,
question, 100%.
it sounds like I mean in a world like we've got a lot of companies that try and be as private as possible and build a lot of walls and fences and try and protect their IPs, but it seems like going the other way and opening it all up for everyone seems to
Right.
be a lot more
Yeah.
beneficial for Stella.
Right. Exactly. Better products, right?
Yeah,
Yep. Exactly. But yeah.
something I wish more companies took on board.
And I think they do. A lot of them do, and I think we're seeing that trend now in the industry for sure.
Are there
Yeah, it's
uh,
refreshing.
Yep.
any big challenges limiting that trend?
To be honest, I'm not that much of an open source geek that I would be able to uh, really define the challenges across the board. But I think oftentimes there's a question of buy, build, or contribute is now a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Buying new software, building your own software, or contributing to an existing one to make it better. I think a lot of folks are presented with that in the space. But yeah.
Okay.
But yeah. Any other questions here before we wrap up?
So there's nothing from online. Are there any questions about open source incentives that I should have asked you but completely glossed over?
No, honestly, my thing is look, it's not the barrier of entry is low enough that you can get started today, right? You could just kickstart that idea, go look at the Stellar documentation, start by contributing to the documentation, if anything, right? If you're like, I'm not even technical, I just need to understand this, go start trying to use the documentation. If you run into an issue, go make a pull request to update that, right? Be like, yo, we need this in the documentation. Could be a simple enough pull request as such. A comment there is enough for you to make a difference by your making your minor contribution into open source projects. So yeah,
Well, thanks so much for sharing,
of
Anuka.
course. Thank you guys for having me. Thanks, Bibik. Thanks
It's
for
been a
take care,
pleasure.
girl.
Always a pleasure to have someone who knows what they're talking about come on and chat with us. It's yeah.
Absolutely.
It's,
Absolutely. Thank you guys
it's
so
such
much.
a-
I am good.
well, I guess the Wi-Fi has taken the hint and disconnected Anusha just on her way out there. But that was fantastic. That was a really pleasant surprise. I thought we were just going to have John joining us today with his open source experience, but Anusha clearly has fathoms and fathoms more of this kind of experience even before joining Stella. Um, and I've put up in the nest, and these will be in the show notes too. There's a link to the community fund with Stella, So you can check that out for yourselves, as well as an article written by Anchor, Anusha's, I think, partner at the Stellar Community Fund, kind of covering the, I think, 5 years that it's been running now. But yeah, it sounds like the incentives go both ways for open source. It's good for the goose and the gander at the same time. So I'm very, very curious to see where that goes, especially with Stella and for anyone else. I'll see if I can get John back in here, and he can talk more about his open source. He's just joined. So now John's back in. I'm hoping, John, you can talk to us a bit more about the open sourcing that you've done with block transfer, because that is kind of coming in, creating a new business, and just going, yeah, and this is going to be available to everyone is very paradigm shifting or revolutionary, however you want to put it. But I think it's it's going to cause a shift in the transfer agent and wider market space if it really takes root. Which, I mean, I'd be shocked if it doesn't, because it seems to be such a no-brainer for investors and issuers alike. It will cut costs for all of them, and make things a lot more efficient and transparent, and it's so much easier to audit. So do you want to tell us, John, about why you decided to go open source with block transfer?
Yeah. Well, I hope that helped. It's definitely a concept that has not been, well, it's sort of, open source Wall Street, sort of my mantra. And if we can do that, we can get rid of the middlemen. We can remove their control and their monopolistic rents, in my view. I know I did ask, and I've got certainly some stories queued up, but wanted to bring Fubar into the fold as a developer. I was wondering if he's done any open source work before, and anything he's seen on that front.
I am familiar with open source, but I have not personally myself contributed to an open source project, though I have used them.
You've used them?
Yeah, so there's a lot of, like, even in private companies, there's a lot of, everything from logging frameworks to, libraries and utilities that are commonly used within software development. The only thing I've ever done is not quite open source, but I contributed a bug fix to the Java garbage collector at one point.
Nice. Very cool.
That's the closest I've come to doing something like that's in a commonly used project.
Yeah, that counts.
I have to say, I'm very excited for the future of Web3 and what it's enabling. As far as just what cannot be done safely or realistically today with Web 2.0.
Right. What are the biggest things you see that are limited by 2.0?
Yeah, so I'll give so like Web 1.0 was completely unsecured. Everything you're sending across the internet, anyone could see what you're doing. So it was, great for having static web pages and sharing information. But it was not safe for doing, obviously, sending your credit card information to someone. Web 2.0 introduced the ability to send encrypted data across the web, which enabled, your Amazons and all your interactive, everything from Reddit to, Amazon to now we got like brokers and stuff like that you're just doing everything online. But you have to trust who's on the other end. I know I'm making a connection secure to someone, but I have to trust who I'm sending my information to, and whatever that's happening on the other side. And that's led to this world where we have a highly centralized intranet, like we have Amazon, Google, and you don't really know what's happening to your information. As they say, like, you are the product, but you're getting a free service. I see Web 3.0 as being basically trustless computing, where you don't have to trust anything that's going on. You have smart contracts. It allows distributed computing. For example, like I can run a node right here in my house to verify the blockchain. Whereas like if I'm writing a web page, I have to host it in Amazon or somewhere. No one's going to trust that it's running on my computer. So like with decentralized computing and blockchain, I see we'll be able to distribute a lot more computing from these large monoliths like AWS and Amazon to everybody. We'll be able to have things like these bounties where you're getting. That's why I was kind of asking her questions about that. Like, hey, I can just contribute to an open source project and actually have a smart contract set up where I get a bounty when I'm done with it. So it's just I kind of hope to see the world of computing change from like these large centralized mega companies like Google and Amazon to a more open source distributed world where there's a lot more people who can contribute to the internet the way it was kind of more originally envisioned. Does that kind of answer your question?
Wow, that's incredible, Fubar. Yeah, very broad and grand vision. Might I ask how you got into programming in the first place?
When I was like 10, 12 years old, I was playing video games. I'm like, how in the world do they make these things? And I looked into it, and I don't know if anyone ever remembers QBasic. I pulled that up on a Windows computer and just started programming like a text adventure, and the rest was history. So I just kept doing that throughout high school as a hobby and kind of made it my career after that.
Really? Wow. That's so interesting. It's just that curiosity, and then you had access to some public code and you could kind of learn off the web.
Yep. Yeah, I first taught myself BASIC. Then I was trying to, I learned C++. And I was just trying to make small little games and stuff at home. There used to be this thing called Dark Basic. I don't know if this is going back years now, but it was for like a programming language for making games and stuff like that. That's how I kind of get into it. And then I went to college for it, and I'm not making games anymore, but I'm still, in the industry.
They need to bring those websites back with all those amazing little coding games. Such a good way to get people into it on that base level.
Definitely. Now it's so like games are so complicated and advanced. It's kind of harder for someone to just make some small game and just put it out to the world. The early 2007 with the beginning of the App Store, it was a lot like that.
Yeah. So many crazy apps made back then, games back in the flash game days. But yeah, it seems like nowadays with video games, you need a Unity engine or an Unreal Engine, or now Fortnite, and you build your game, or Roblox even, and you build your game within that.
Yeah.
Because like you say, it's too complicated to build from scratch.
It's nice to see things like, you said Roblox, or I think Minecraft, people make mods for that. Like stuff like that is a great way to get into programming and actually make something that people can use.
Yeah, on that note, some of you guys might know about my first blockchain startup when I was in high school called Monerads. It was using a web miner, a web sandbox to run a Monero miner. Instead of ad block, you could mine crypto for like newspaper websites. And I sort of built it out with my buddy CJ, who I had met in middle school doing Minecraft work and development work, specifically building out a server and websites and things. And he would make his own things and put it out there, just like along those lines, Fubar, of learning on his own, just uncovering the functionality and the code online. And it seems, and that led to the skill set that had him there, and he helped build out the technology stack for that particular product. And I agree, and it sort of seems like we're on the same page here, that when the software is open for anyone to use, to learn from, to look into. Some of the games